Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and I'm joined by Gregory. How are you, Ross?
Good, thanks, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. Good to see you. This is a pre-recorded show, not live. We recorded it on Tuesday, going out on Wednesday. But as always, we've got an hour to look at what's making the headlines at St James's Park at Newcastle United this week. And first up, let's start with a first signing. Yakuba Minte has arrived at St James's Park and then swiftly departed St James's Park on loan to Feyenoord. Evening Chronicle ran with a story yesterday. Newcastle United, of course, putting it out on their official website about the signing. And a player that we've been linked with, it has to be said, for a considerable amount of time. A young player, one for the future. He's 18 years of age. He's from Gambia. He's a forward. He's signed from Newcastle from Danish side Dens Bold Club, and he will complete his move to Newcastle officially, of course, on the 1st of July, and then he is going to fly out and join the Dutch champions and fellow Champions League competitors Feyenoord on loan for the full 23-24 season. He is a highly coveted prospect, of course. He's made 17 senior appearances for OB in the Danish Superliga. He scored 4 goals and registered 6 assists. Dan Ashworth was quoted by the club as saying that he's very pleased to be bringing a player with Yankuba's high potential to Newcastle United. He's done extremely well in his first full season in Denmark, and he has a promising career ahead of him. We look forward to working with him in this exciting phase of his development, and we're excited to see how he performs at Feyenoord, a club that also has a strong development record of its own. As well as supporting the first team with the players for the here and now, we have a clear philosophy to invest in emerging talent, and we want to provide a player pathway that would help to build and sustain a long-term success. And after completing his move to Feyenoord, Minte has said that he's looking forward to playing for the reigning national champion. It is an honour to wear the Feyenoord shirt. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I will do everything I can to improve as a footballer. I am sure the Feyenoord will help me achieve my goals, just as I'm convinced that I can turn help Feyenoord in its sporting ambitions. So, big news story breaking yesterday evening when we were live on air, Ross. And again, I say it's a player that has been linked with Newcastle, for the past 12 months. Great to see Newcastle kickstarted with another one for the future.
It is. It's one of them signings which will not necessarily get the pulses racing hugely among the fan base. I don't think it's he's obviously not a player for this coming season. He's not for the here and now. It's a player that Newcastle want to bring in and try to develop over the next couple of seasons, and hopefully hope that they have unearthed a kind of almost a hidden gem, getting a young player in relatively cheaply, £5.5, 6 million. £6 million is the reported price tag. So he's not going to be somebody that comes obviously into Eddie Howe's squad and is immediately going to excite fans, and that's fine. I think Newcastle are obviously shopping in different markets this summer. They're going to have to look at bringing in players who are ready for the Premier League and ready for the Champions League and can improve the first team, not necessarily just the squad, but then take the first team starting 11 onto a next level. But Newcastle have always said that they've been very, very clear under this new ownership and certainly since Dan Ashworth come in, that they want to scout and bring in some of the best young talent, young players that are available around the world, around Europe, around South America, around brought in Garang Kual from Australia. So they've got the scouts working overtime in different parts of the world to scout these highly rated young players and get them in before anybody else does. So in that sense, I think it continues a real kind of progression that Newcastle want to do in terms of bringing in I suppose gambling slightly, but bringing in some of the best young players and then seeing how they can develop them over the next couple of years. Taking Minter out to Feyenoord is a really, really interesting move, I think. Feyenoord are a really top level team these days under Arne Slot, their head coach, their manager, who himself is highly rated. They've won the Dutch league. They've played in the higher echelons of Europe recently. It's an interesting move in the sense that he's not going out to a team that won't have pressure on it. Won't be playing at a high level. He's going to be going into a high pressured situation with Feyenoord where they're playing at the top level in their leagues. They're going to be competing in the Champions League. But as was said in the press release and from Dan Ashworth, Feyenoord have got a really strong reputation for developing players. So it's a really interesting move for him. I think Newcastle fans, like with Garang Kual, they'll be keeping an eye on his progress and how he performs. His rise has been quite meteoric over the last year or 18 months. Coming in from Gambia into Denmark, into Odense, and hitting the ground running there and making an instant impression where if you speak to people in Denmark, they thought that he might have needed a little bit of time with Odense to find his feet, and he hasn't. He's taken the Danish league by storm. So his rise over the last 12 months has been really rapid. Speaking of rapid, that's one of the key attributes that he has. He's pacey. He's got great speed. He's a dribbler. He's a left-footed winger who likes to cut in on his left foot and take players on and beat players. Real flair player. So yeah, it's an interesting signing. It's not something that's going to improve Newcastle in the short term, but it's one with an eye on kind of future prospects and seeing if they can develop these players like what other clubs have been doing, like what you see Man United bringing in young players and loaning them out. You see Chelsea doing it. You see a lot of the big clubs, Man City doing similar. And for Newcastle to have that all lined up and done before the transfer window's even opened, got that relationship obviously up and running with Feyenoord. It's really quite an impressive bit of business so far, I think.
Interesting you point out as well, he's going to learn a lot from going to Feyenoord. I mean, this is no offence intended whatsoever to Hearts for Garang Kual, but the standard of football in the Premier League in Scotland, as opposed to say maybe he's going and playing for Feyenoord, maybe he's in the Dutch league. It's going to be a bit different, isn't it? There's a lot more for him to learn there, and I think maybe the club will look for a similar type of mood for Garang Kual this year.
Yeah, I think so. I think they probably learned some lessons from Garang Kual's experience up in Hearts, and look, it was slightly different in the sense it was mid-season. He came in January, and there was a strong Australian contingent up at Hearts at that time as well. So it made sense in a lot of ways. This is a different type of loan, though. This is like I say, it's a higher level, and I don't think I think to be fair to Minter, he's not necessarily going to go in there and start 40 games a season and be a regular right from the outset. He's going to probably have to learn on the job, learn that there will be some dips in your career and everything isn't plain sailing, and Garang Kual's had to learn that as well. But the fact that Feyenoord are playing Champions League football and Newcastle have thought, right, this is the right club for us to place this young prospect. It says a lot about him as a player, I think, as well, and where Mary's positioning him, where they they feel he's going to be best served and what level he can go in at right now. But also obviously says a lot for Feyenoord, and that they trust them and think that this is a club that can develop a young player for Newcastle's benefit. And like I say, under the manager that they have there, Feyenoord, who you know came very close to joining Leeds and very close to moving to Spurs as well. If you believe everything, and the fact that he stayed with Feyenoord and he's going to give them another season, it's going to be a really exciting move, and you know one that Newcastle will obviously keep a close eye on.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Lewis Miley, of course, broke into the first team at the back end of this season. Somebody who Eddie Howe clearly rates very highly. And I noticed an article in the Chronicle this week suggesting that maybe Lewis Miley won't go out on loan this season. And, you know, Elliot Anderson, of course, we've seen him go out and have a successful loan period under the leadership of Joey Barton. And you know, became a cult hero on his travels. But he has been given the opportunity to break into the first team. And when he's played for Newcastle United's first team this season, he hasn't looked out of place. Lewis Miley has made the breakthrough now. Obviously, very proud family on Tyneside, delighted that this has happened. And you know, it looks very much, according to the article in the Chronicle, that he won't be going out on loan. So it may be the fact that we've got another lad, you know, who's going to be in and around the first team this season, you know, from these shores.
Yeah, I'm personally a big fan of the loan system. I think it's I think if you get players into the right clubs at the right time in their career, I think it can be the making of players, and we've seen it. You know, we've seen it at Newcastle, but probably less so at Newcastle actually. But we've seen it. You know, Elliot Anderson's a good example, to be fair. Sean Longstaff's not a bad example. You know, went out to different clubs. Kilmarnock, he had a good spell at, and Blackpool, I think he had a good spell at. You know, worked with Lee Clark at I think at Kilmarnock, and brought his career on. And you know, as you say, Elliot Anderson's another one. You know, I remember Paul Dummett went out to somewhere like Gateshead on loan before he broke into the first team at Newcastle. So I think if you pitch players in at the right club, it's got to be the right environment for them. But it's also got to be at the right time in their career as well, when they are mature enough, both physically and mentally, to be able to handle, you know, stepping out of their comfort zone, going to a different club, which, you know, living in digs or living out of a hotel or in a rented accommodation or whatever, without the family around them, without their friends around them, that can make a player. But equally, it can be quite tough for players as well. Stepping out of that comfort zone if you're 16, 17, 18. So it's got to be the right environment, and it's got to be the right time in a player's kind of career within their kind of development. And you know, we've seen plenty of examples where players have gone out on loan and it's not really worked, and they come back and having not played many games. And there's a couple of Newcastle players, young players, who've gone out this season just finished on loan up into Scotland, and Grant Qua's a good example. But you know, your Dylan Stevenson's and other players who haven't quite had the impact that they might have expected or wanted. So with Lewis Miley, I think because he is so highly rated, because he is so but he is so young still, he's still, you know, he is still just 17 years old. I think Newcastle would want to protect him, would want to make sure that he's looked after, and that he's getting the coaching and the development that they trust, because it's still at a really kind of crucial part of his career, crucial part of his development. So I'm all for him staying at Newcastle if that's what the decision is. Eddie Howe and his coaching staff and the academy coaching team will know the player, know what he's capable of, and when is the best time to maybe give him that exposure to first team football in League One or League Two or the Championship or whatever. But it's just great to see these young players coming through, Steve. It's great to see, you know, your Lewis Smileys and your Elliot Andersons, and hopefully we have a couple more over the next 2 or 3 years, because everybody loves to see a local lad coming through. Everybody loves to see a Newcastle team with Geordies in it. We've been quite lucky this season, I think, with Elliot Anderson, with Dan Burn, with Paul Dummett being in the squad, with people like, like Sean Longstaff making such an impact. Jacob Murphy, who probably wasn't born up here, his parents are from, Burley and Ashington and real northeast Newcastle Geordie people. So that's been great, and I think that helps. But it's always good to see young players come through the system and be attached to the first team. And Lewis Miley's obviously got a burgeoning reputation, and I'm sure that the coaching staff will do their very best to keep him on the right path and keep him developing as a footballer.
Yeah. Moving on to slightly more experienced players, Paul Dummett and Matt Ritchie, we both know have been, offered new deals at Newcastle. Eddie Howe making a point at the end of the season that he needs to retain certain members of the squad. He's put offers out to those particular players, and we wait to see whether one or both of those stay. But there are other players other than Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett. Chronicle in one of the articles online this week listed them: Loris Karius, Mark Gillespie, Matty Longstaff, and Kieran Clark, among others who are have been out on loan from Newcastle. Expected that Kieran Clark will leave. Matty Longstaff, of course, as we know, recuperating from injury. Karius, the goalkeeper conundrum, we discussed that last week. Mark Gillespie as well. So Dummett and Matt Ritchie are the interesting ones. Both of them have been referred to as important players behind the scenes. Neither really featured very much last season, but both equally as important away from the scene. And of course, as we discussed last week, Dummett important in the sense that he's locally born, locally trained, comes into the Champions League thinking. But one would imagine, unless there's personal reasons, that you would imagine both of those, one or both, will probably stay, Ross.
I think if they're offered contracts, if they're offered new deals, and the terms are even remotely acceptable, then yeah, I think I'd be surprised if they didn't both want to stay. Now, look, I think you've got to weigh it up with, as a professional footballer, you want to weigh it up with match time and game time and making them appearances on the pitch, and neither player would have been happy with the amount of game time that they had in the season just finished. But they're both for a variety of reasons. They've both suffered with injuries and this, that, and the other, and other players have come in and done really well. So as you have your self-worth, you have your self-respect, and your belief that you can still operate at the best level. And I'm sure Paul Dummett and Matt Ritchie are no different, and they want to be playing football. So they'll have to weigh that up with the flip side of staying at a fantastic club where they've got a huge affinity for, where they feel part of the group and they feel as if they're contributing, a club which is clearly going places. Would you want to leave right now when you've got Champions League football coming up? Would you want to be going off and playing in the Championship or wherever else? Or would you want to stay and even just have a sniff of those Champions League nights of being on the bench against whoever it might be, or if there's an injury crisis or there's a few injuries and you end up in a starting 11? And I think that's what you've got to weigh it up with. I think it's a very, very tough decision to walk away from Newcastle at this point in the journey, with Champions League around the corner, with everything else that's going on. So two great personalities, great guys to have in the club. And we've said it all before, that what you see on the pitch on a Saturday or a Sunday for 90 minutes is only a really small part of what makes it a harmonious changing room, what makes a harmonious football club. You've got to have people around the place who are good personalities, who are good trainers, who are good with the rest of the lads in the changers, who keep the morale up. And I'm not saying you just give people contracts just make them cheerleaders. They've still got to be able to contribute. I'd like to see, going slightly off tangent, yes, Steve, but I'd like to see if somebody like Paul Dummett and Matt Ritchie are given contracts and do stay at the club, I'd almost like to see them being integrated somehow in with the under-23s and in with the youth players, and giving them the benefit of their experience and playing the odd game in the 23s alongside a Lewis Miley, what he could learn from a Matt Ritchie, or putting Paul Dummett in the back four alongside three teenagers. How much would they learn from someone like Paul Dummett playing alongside them? So little things like that I think would be good. But Eddie Howe clearly values both players, and I can quite easily see them still being around at Newcastle next season.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we've used it on this program before. There's no room for sentimentality, Ross. But you know, there is that dressing room dynamic which has been so positive since Eddie Howe came in. They've worked hard to get it to that level. And I think that as long as he can hold on to these players and justify why he's holding on to them, I don't think anybody would disagree. I mean, Kieran Trippier, a key part of that team, a key part of the dressing room. But clearly, he can't do it all by himself. And that's where Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett have clearly come into their own as well. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, people like Jamal Lascelles, people like that who might not be playing week in, week out, but they're big characters. They've got a leadership quality to them. And they're important people to have around the club. You can't just have, you know, a disparate bunch of guys and everybody. Obviously, everybody wants to be playing. Everybody wants to be in that starting 11. You know, you're a professional footballer at the end of the day, and that's what you get paid to do, is to play football on a Saturday, on a Sunday, for 90 minutes, whatever it is. But you need to have that the mix, right? You know, I've managed clubs, you've managed teams, Steve. I'm obviously nowhere near Newcastle's level. I'm not trying to compare what we do with on a Sunday morning with what Eddie Howe does on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon. But you need them personalities. You need players who come back. You know, for us on a Sunday morning, you need players who come back to the pub after the game and keep the spirits up, or who take the mickey out of the lads in the changes beforehand, or you know, raise the raffle or run the players pool or whatever. All these different aspects to it. It's like I hasten to add again, I'm not comparing Sunday morning football to running Newcastle United by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying there's different roles that people need within an organisation, whether that's a football team, whether that's a big business, whether that's a media company, whether it's a charity organisation. Everybody brings something to the pot within a successful functioning team, and Newcastle United is no different than that.
Yeah, dressing room's a dressing room, mate, and you know, you can compare it to that. You know, that you know, there's no different. You listen to a lot of ex-footballers. I work with a lot of them, and you ask them what's the thing you miss the most, and it's the banter, Ross, in the dressing room.
Yeah, it is. It's that camaraderie. It's that friendship. It's that you know, you go into work. Ultimately, you're going into a place of work, and you want to be going in there and enjoying going in there. You want to be going in and looking forward to it. And it's similar on a whether it's grassroots football or non-league football. You want to be going into that changing room and looking forward to going in there, looking forward to see the lads, looking forward to turning up each week. So it's really important having a good camaraderie around a changing room. Whatever level that they play at. And like I say, and you say, it's no room for sentimentality. You're not employing people and giving them, you know, a year contract on good money just to be a cheerleader or just to you know, sort the players pool out or whatever. There's more to it than that. But you know, Paul Dummett and Matt Ritchie ultimately are very, very good footballers, exceptional footballers. They've got themselves into the Premier League footballers. They're one of a really small percentage, and never let Newcastle down when they've played on the pitch, and never let the club down off the pitch neither. So you can certainly see why Eddie Howe is keen to keep them around.
You mentioned Jamal Lascelles there, and of course he has been at this moment in time heavily linked with a move to Premiership new boys, Luton Town. I would be reluctant to let Jamal Lascelles go if the replacement is going to be Harry Maguire, which some of the papers have mentioned. You know, we can't seriously be considering a move for Harry Maguire. I mean, £30 million fee mooted, but £200,000 wages well led to believe he's on at Manchester United is completely out of Newcastle's remit. And you know, I just don't see the logic in that. You know, and I think Lascelles, looking at that story, I would say that Lascelles, out of Matt Ritchie, Paul Dummett, is probably the one that the club are maybe ready to let go. And maybe, and this hasn't been, you know, this has been complimentary to Lascelles. I think he can still do a job for another team. I still think he can play in the Premier League, especially from what we're seeing of him in the odd game that he's been able to play this year. When he's had to step up, he's still been able to step up. I think Jamal Lascelles would be discrediting himself by not getting a move. You know, he deserves one last hurrah, really, with another club and another big contract from a move.
I agree 100%, Steve. I think he's certainly more than capable still of playing Premier League football. Now, look, is he going to walk into or get into a top 4, top 6, top 8 team? Probably not. But you know, the Premier League's made up of different levels, and I think you know he's shown over the years that he's more than capable of handling his own in the Premier League. I know he's at times he's been one of those Newcastle players that's divided opinion a little bit across the fan base, and that's fine. There's always going to be players like that, but again, I don't think he's necessarily let anybody down when he's played. Some of his performances when he came on as subs, when he started games and the season just finished, he was outstanding. He was probably Newcastle's best player against Man City at the Etihad, in my opinion, or certainly one of the 2 or 3 best players when he was kind of parachuted in later on when Fabian Schär was unavailable, and you know he's coming up against your Haalands and your De Bruynes and your Silvers and all these top players, and he more than held his own and looked really comfortable. So I think he's one of them where I would expect him to leave this summer. I think he's one of the players that Newcastle will look at and think, right, actually we can get a fee for this player. And I've mentioned this on the show before. That's important for Newcastle still in terms of being able to reinvest and go somewhere to hitting FFP guidelines, and you know, even if it's just, you know, you're bringing 5, 6, 8 million in for Jamal Lascelles, whatever it is, it's still revenue into the club, and he can go to Luton, to Forest, to any number of teams from probably top 8, top 10 down, and be a standout performer in their defence, in my opinion. Whether that's something that he wants to do right now, whether he wants to actually go to somewhere like that and play in the bottom half of the Championship, the Premier League, sorry, or the top end of the Championship, and walk away from Champions League football at Newcastle, or the potential of Champions League football, that's something that he'll have to weigh up. But I think if Newcastle received a solid bid from him, they'd certainly accept it.
Yeah, I agree. He's been a good servant. We wish him well, whatever happens to Jamal Lascelles over the summer. Okay, we are halfway through the show. Time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to contact the guys, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to New Workwear. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider launched in 2018. For more information, go to their website, newworkwear.com. Big thanks, as always, to Media Arts for the help with the video side of things. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. Hit the thumb up under the video, which likes the video, and click share to share to your other social media. Click join if you want to become a member of the channel for as little as $1.99, or take a one-off payment for the cult membership. You can get in via this QR code if you've got a smartphone, or look for membership pack on the website, nufcmatters.com. What do you get for your one-off £25 payment? You get a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, if you want a car sticker, all you need to do is subscribe to the show and then email John at NUFC Matters, and he will post you a free car sticker out. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket where you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. The new Alan Shearer raffle is underway. 150 tickets at £1 a ticket. You could win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball from the 260 dinner. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a few events coming up. August the 5th sees Gavin Peacock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £10, and you can get them now from nufcmatters.com. Our Christmas event takes place on the 7th of December at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that's an evening with Frank Clark. Tickets are £15 and available from nufcmatters.com. Finally, Waddle, Keegan, Beardsley and friends. The class of 84 is on at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 23rd. Tickets are now available from the Tyne Theatre and Opera House.co.uk or telephone 0844 2491 000. That's the box office telephone number 0844 2491 000. Okay, and just before the break, we were talking about Jamal Lascelles and a potential move away from Newcastle United. I did mention Harry Maguire, Ross, and a link with him, a tentative link in the Chronicle and across other national newspapers about the Manchester United centre-half potentially coming to St James's Park. What's your views on that?
Look, I'm probably in the minority. I quite like Harry Maguire. I'm not saying that he's the finished article or he's the greatest centre half in the world, but I like him as a character. I like him as a personality. I think when he's on form, he's a half decent footballer. I think the move to Man United obviously hasn't worked out for him, and he's and I think sometimes players don't fit at certain clubs, and or the club they can get to a club and it's maybe a little bit too big for them. The pressures, the intensity, the profile, whatever it might be, the characters, your Ronaldos and so on and so forth around the dressing room, and maybe don't make it the best environment for someone who's coming in and playing football. And he's had a tough time at there. He's absolutely had a tough time there. But I still think he's a good defender. He's shown that on England duty, and in high level tournaments when the pressure's been on, that he's been one of England's best players for me in big tournaments like that. Of course, he's prone to the odd mistake. Would I pay 30 million for him to bring him to Newcastle this summer? No, I wouldn't. I don't think he's necessarily the right fit for Newcastle right now. I think they need somebody who's more comfortable on the right side of the back four in terms of the two centre halves. And Maguire's more, for me, looks more comfortable when he's playing on the left side, which is obviously where Sven Botman plays, and you've got Dan Burn as potential backup there. So I think Newcastle need a right-sided centre half to put competition in for Fabian Schär. Bear in mind that what we've just talked about with Jamal Lascelles potentially going. So I don't think at 30 million at 30 years old or however old he is now that Harry Maguire is the right fit for Newcastle right now. But I think he'd be a good signing for another Premier League club, just not Newcastle.
Okay, you've been running a survey in the Evening Chronicle, Ross, as well. I filled it in. 7,000 people have done the end of season survey. Tell us a little bit about it and where people can find it.
Yeah, so if you go on the Cron and look for the big forum, the big survey, we do this across the country with the titles that we own, the company that publishes the Chronicle, Reach PLC, own across the group, and we try to get, it's just a bit of a fan engagement, try to get that feedback. We don't want to just be, this is what we think as journalists. We want to get the feedback from the people who matter the most, which is the fans who watch the games week in, week out. So at the end of the season, we've launched the big Newcastle survey, and it talks about there's questions on a range of subjects, whether on transfers, on ownership, on the atmosphere, on the state of the ground, where you think the priority should be, whether it's improving the academy or improving the training ground. What you think of Eddie Howe? Is he the right person? Is he the right man to take Newcastle on to the next level? Champions League, all sorts. It's kind of a review of the season just finished, but also, more importantly, probably casting an eye ahead as to what the future holds for Newcastle. So yeah, we've had a fantastic amount of response to it. 7,000 people have filled this survey in already, and there's some really interesting results. We're going to collate them all probably at the end of this week, start of next week, and get them results out and let you know what fellow fans think of the club and the state that it's in. And we've done these for a couple of years, and let's be honest. Sometimes the responses or the feel around the feedback around the club hasn't been quite so positive. So I'm fully expecting it to be a really positive response this time round. But you know, finding out what fans think about St James's Park, whether they want to move to a new stadium or they want to stay put, whether they think the academy's in a good enough shape. All these questions, it gives Newcastle fans a chance to have their say.
Fans and replica shirts is something which goes hand in hand in the summer. We've got nothing to talk about other than who might be coming and who might be going. But the release of the new football shirt now has become part of every football club's pre-season. In the past, Newcastle have had some fairly horrendous strips. We had a strip where, of course, the bars, the Newcastle United stripes weren't quite on par with what Newcastle United fans were expecting. They can be too narrow, they can be too thick. We've had the green oil sponsor where you had to stitch your actual sponsor across the middle of your shirt, which caused many an argument in many a house when somebody who stitched it maybe didn't get quite level with it. We've had the shield on the back of the shirt, which caused a horrendous kickoff. And of course, we had in more recent times a Newcastle United shirt which looked as if it had a big fat 4 on the front. So what's the problem with the new shirt? For me, I don't think anything, but for many Newcastle fans who took to social media and took to various YouTube channels, they seem to think that Newcastle United is spelled incorrectly on the badge with 2 T's, I hasten to add. So, Ross, I guess the question I've got for you is, have you seen it? Do you think what they've said is valid, or is this much ado about nothing? And I've got to be honest, I'll tell you where I stand right away on this. I don't see an issue with it. I've compared it to other shirts, and I don't see an issue with this. I think this is mainly down to the fact that, again, like I said at the top of that intro, people have got too much time on their hands these days. And back in the day, there was no such thing as social media. Social media can make big things out of little things. And, in the past, this would have had to go into the Sunday Sun, the £25 letter column. And if the editor didn't think it was worthy, it wouldn't be in there, Ross. So is this much ado about nothing? What do you see there, Ross? There's the picture for you.
Look, if you look really closely, it potentially could be a double T. It could be. It's just the stitching. It's the way the stitching is done. It's probably not a double T, because if you look at the top part of the N going up, and then the T next to it is the lesser part of the T. I think it's part of the stitching and the way it's embroidered. So it looks to the naked eye like it could be 2 T's, but look, it's a bit of stitching when you're embroidering on like that. It's very, very difficult to get that. The lettering and everything is so close together that it can just blend into each other a little bit. But I'm the same as you, Steve. I've seen it on other kits on previous strips, and it's looked very, very similar. It's a bit of a fuss over nothing for me. But I'm not if I'm being honest, I'm not a massive kit connoisseur like other people are. It doesn't get my juices flowing like it does other fans. We've launched actually last year. We launched a newsletter just on football kits, just on football strips, and people's obsessions with them. And we've had about 12,000 people sign up to this newsletter, just wanting the latest news on kit and everything else like that. So it really is a talking point for everybody. And any time that we do articles on strips, whether it's Newcastle or Liverpool or Man United or Arsenal or whoever it is, any leaks on social media, and this, the interest in it's huge. So I understand the interest in it. It's not necessarily something that floats my boat, but it's a bit of a fuss over nothing for me. I think I think the kit looks okay. It's not my favorite kit that I've ever seen, but it's the badge is what it is, with the lettering and the way that it's embroidered is always going to make it a little bit difficult, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately there will be another hoo-ha guaranteed in the coming weeks when one of the away strips comes out, and it'll have some kind of green on it. Some of the leaked designs have been, a full green strip with a bit of a white, a bit of a white border. So we'll wait and see. But again, like I said, 10, 15 years ago, this wouldn't have been a thing, but social media does, in the words of Michael Winner, make a drama out of a crisis. So moving on swiftly from that topic, fan zones at Newcastle. That's another, interesting thing that Sealer, the new front of shirt sponsor, have announced that they're going to be working in partnership with the club to create a fan zone. We've been to many away games over the years, Ross, and fan zones have started to creep into places. I used the example of Wolves being one, where home fans and away fans can mix. They have a selection of different outlets serving food and drink, a stage area which is usually pumping out the latest songs, team news, and of course has interviews with former legends on the stage. So sounds as if we're going to have something very similar to that, and probably as early as this season. A fan of fan zones, Ross?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think in the right environment and for the right people, the right types of people, they're fine. They're good. I think if you make them particularly family friendly and organised like that, then I think they can work well. I think on a bigger scale at big events, when you go down to Wembley and places like that, I think they've definitely got that place. I suppose I'm slightly against kind of what I like the term as kind of forced entertainment, if you like, and trying to force something and you must attend or this is the place to go if you want to have the best fun. But I do think that it's important for Newcastle to continue the work that they've done with the fan groups and connecting in with supporters on match days. And the match day experience for everybody is different. For some people, they just want to turn up at 5 to 3 and walk and get straight in and go to their seat and watch the game and then leave and go home. For others, it's a full day. It's going out for a meal with the family. It's going out for meeting their pals for a few drinks and then after the game exactly the same. So the match day kind of it differs. The match day experience differs for everybody. So providing another outlet, another option for fans, I think's good. I would be interested. It's just come to us actually. I'd probably be interested in hearing what some of the local businesses around the city centre would think about it, whether they think that might potentially pull punters away from what they do, whether it's, you put on events before games, Steve, a lot of pubs and restaurants and everything else like that, a lot of their trade on match days, they're quite reliant on it. So I'd be interested to hear what some of those thoughts are, whether they think it's good and it offers another outlet, or whether they'd be slightly worried if it might pull people away from what they're offering. But I haven't said all that, there's 55,000 people in Newcastle on that day, and there's probably enough fans there for everybody. So I suppose a bit of a long-winded answer, I suppose, to that question. So I've seen them work well, but I'm also slightly, they're not necessarily always for me as well.
I think the point you made is valid. 52,000 people, and with a ground increase at some point, there will be more. It just gives people an option a little bit closer to the ground. And I've been to these fans areas elsewhere, and I've got to be perfectly honest, they're not chock-a-block, but it's usually a useful place to go as people make their way to the ground. And I said this to the lads on the fans forum on Monday night, that a lot of us have just got what we are as football fans tend to be creatures of habit. We have our places we want to go, and people will come and watch Supermac or Gibbo do a football talk, and then they'll move on to the next pub to go and meet the dad or the brother or go and meet the best mate, or some people like to get to the ground early and go and watch the team warm up. They're heading up to the ground at 2 o'clock. They get that program, they go and get a cup of coffee, and then they go and stand and watch the teams warming up. Other people prefer to have that last pint and get in at 5 to kick off. Some people like to go up to the ground and get into the lounge and have a pint or a pie and something to eat at 2:30, and then wait for the 3 o'clock kickoff and absorb the atmosphere as it builds up. So we're all creatures of habit. We've all got something different. I know where you're coming from with maybe it would upset bars, but I think there's enough to go around, and I think it gives that opportunity as well. We're led to believe you know, the way that Newcastle may do it is it may well be like some kind of permanent fixture where, you know, there'll be shops, and you when you walk down Wembley now, for example, that has come on leaps and bounds. There's restaurants, bars, and there's, you know, there's outlets, you know, the different outlets along the walkways from Wembley. You know, a far cry from what it used to be like, you know, 40, 50 years ago. It's a different place now, and it's actually built up for business, isn't it?
It is, and that's a really good point you made there, Steve, as well. You know, you've got to create a match day experience that caters for everybody, but ultimately for Newcastle as well, they've got to be looking at it from slightly from a business perspective as well, in terms of what they can generate on match days themselves, if there's other opportunities for them to do that. And generating money isn't just through your sales and everything. It's about creating that experience. It's about wanting people to come into the ground a little bit earlier, coming into you know, the fan zone and spending money there, or spending some time there, and just offering something different. So yeah, look, life moves on, doesn't it? You know, there's always progress. There's always new things and new ventures, and some will work and some won't. And I think for me the key part of this is that Newcastle are wanting to connect in with the fan base. They're wanting to do things and try things, whether it's via them or via Sela or via whoever, but they're wanting to engage with the supporters and create something that has everybody joining together, whether that's supporting war flags or doing whatever it is. It's a world away from where we were 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago. You know, there was no connection there, or a very limited connection. That the ownership weren't interested in doing fan zones or you know, creating a fantastic atmosphere around St James's. They weren't interested in talking to fans and finding out what they want on match days and what they want to see from their club. So in that sense, long may it continue.
Yeah, talking about events, Sam Fender played back-to-back gigs at St James's Park at the weekend, and both sellout gigs. Brian Johnson, of course, from AC/DC, joining them on stage in the second gig. But you know, two wonderful events, two chock-a-block events at St James's Park. You would like to think that Newcastle might do more of these, because, you know, I mean, we've just got to look back over the years. You know, Tina Turner, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, all graced St James's Park. You know, under the Ashley era, the Kings of Leon was a bit of a wet blanket, but I think a lot of that, you know, a lot of that was to do with the owner again. People just didn't want to support anything at the club, and I think they got that badly wrong. But yeah, you know, great to see a local hero's welcome for Sam Fender. 2 nights he will never forget, and of course that first night coming onto the Champions League, first time we've all heard the Champions League theme at Newcastle for many years. Give us, you know, it was quite spine tingling, whether you were there or not.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I wasn't lucky enough to be there. I've seen Sam Fender at the arena before, and he's always a fantastic night, fantastic show that he puts on from the sellout St James's 2 nights in a row. And let's be honest, he probably could have sold it out another 2 nights on top of that as well. At least it must be fantastic for him. Everybody you spoke to, a lot of my friends were there, and a lot of people that we spoke to have you know, said how amazing it was. You know, my son was there on the Friday night and came back absolutely buzzing. It was a fantastic weekend for not just for Newcastle United, but for the city, and showcasing what the city can do. And I agree with you, Steve. I don't see there any reason why this shouldn't become almost a permanent fixture. We've seen down the road, down at Sunderland, what they have done with their gigs and their events over the years, and they've had fantastic success. Obviously, they've had Beyonce and Pink on recently, and last year Elton John and the likes. You know, and it's something which provide. I think it's obviously going to provide revenue. It's going to provide some sort of commercial benefit if you get it right and you get the sales right and everything else like that. But it's I go back to this. It's something for the wider community. It's something that benefits the region, whether that's Newcastle or Sunderland or wider. You know, your hotels, your hotel bookings, your bar takings, your restaurants, your shops. It's something that provides for the whole community. And I think Newcastle United as a club have got to understand and realise that their importance within the wider geographical area, whether that's with business, connecting them with businesses, what they can provide for the city, for the Northeast in general. So, look, fantastic weekend. I picked my son up on Friday night, and the amount of people that were still in the bars at 1 o'clock in the morning, or spilling out onto the streets, or coming out to takeaways. The amount of money that must have been generated in the city centre over that weekend is fantastic. Everybody seemed to have a great time, and hopefully we see some more big acts up at St James's over the next few years.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Well done to all involved in that, and I thought the club did very well as well. Having not done a big event like that for some time, no complaints from me as a paying customer. Champions League, and one of the questions on the fans forum on the Chronicles website is about who you would like to see in the Champions League. I hit Real Madrid. Ross, who have you hit?
I hit Dortmund. I'd love a trip if I was lucky enough to get a ticket or get over to Dortmund and just have that experience. But I could have picked one of many there, Steve. To be honest, to Madrid, what a game that would be, going to the Bernabeu or the Nou Camp, or some of the even just, I know Newcastle are going to be in pot 4 with Celtic. So they won't get drawn against Celtic, but a midweek European night up at Celtic under the lights, that would be something special as well. So there's so many really big teams in there, but it's not just about the size of the teams for me. It's just about that experience. You can go to some technically what you might class as smaller teams, but the atmosphere that you get on these big Champions League nights is really exceptional. So. Yeah, Dortmund for me, is the one that I chose when I took part in the survey myself.
And 8,000 tickets were on sale for Newcastle United's first pre-season friendly of the season for the away section. Unbelievably, or should it be no surprise, I guess, they've sold out, Ross. 8,000 people going to travel up the Rangers for a friendly. Yeah, it's almost the perfect. It's almost the perfect friendly, though, isn't it? I think it's almost the perfect game. It's somewhere where it's close enough to travel in a day. You don't have to be taking, you don't have to be having a big weekend away or anything else like that. You obviously, or taking any holidays out. It's a couple of hours up the road up to Glasgow. It's against a huge team with a huge reputation and a huge tradition there. Big crowd expected, big stadium, which means that you've got a large allocation of tickets. It almost becomes the perfect friendly. So it'll be a fantastic occasion. I'm sure Newcastle fans will travel up there, and obviously that droves and try to take over the city of Glasgow, which is as everybody knows is a fantastic city for nights out and for its football as well. So. But 8,000 for a pre-season game, something else, isn't it? Absolutely incredible, and just shows you, how excited the support the fans are about next season. Already, it's certainly something to savour. Newcastle United at the moment, and for me, I'm looking forward to getting on the road for that one. I
remember, Steve, when under the again. Sometimes I do this. I'll go back to the Keegan era. Remembering them pre-season friendlies and that buzz that was there during the Keegan era when you were signing big name players and competing in Europe and bringing in your Ginolas and your Ferdinands and all these your Shearers and all that sort of thing. There was that buzz around pre-season, wasn't there? Wanting to get the first glimpse of the new players in the new kit. Just that excitement, and that's what it feels like now. It feels like that buzz is back.
It definitely does, mate. It's exciting. People just can't wait to get started again, and the season has only just finished. International duty is on us again. The international weekend on the horizon. Great to see Callum Wilson and Kieran Trippier once again involved with England. But I think everybody is really excited to see that Joe Linton has been picked for Brazil. Big week for the big man.
Oh yeah, and thoroughly deserved. It's the season that he's had, or probably the 18 months that he's had. in not just in terms of his performances on the pitch, but I think for me, just the whole transformation of Joe Linton from where he was, never got himself too down. You know, didn't throw in the towel, which he quite easily could have done. And he's just transformed himself into a key player for Newcastle and a key part of why I finished in the top four. To get that reward, and look, whether it's a fleeting Brazil career, I don't know. Whether it becomes something more long term, whether he can establish himself in the squad there. The fact that he's been recognised by a country as rich in talent and quality as Brazil is testament to the way that he's turned his career around. For me, I had a little think about this the other day when I was looking at a player of the season for Newcastle, and it was very, very difficult to pick anybody throughout the season because everybody performed at a high quality level all the way through or at various points. But I just think the way that he constantly adapts to different positions, to what's asked of him, fantastic to see him get that call up to Brazil, and hopefully that'll give him just that extra little bit of confidence boost, and he can bring that back into his performances next season as well for Newcastle.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Transfer news has been few and far between. Of course, the transfer window doesn't open until the 1st of July. And from our perspective, James Maddison heavily linked with Newcastle for the last 3 windows. Stories coming out over the course of the last couple of days that Newcastle are leading in the race to get Maddison's signature. Talks of potentially agents being on Tyneside, etc. It's starting to pick up pace, that story, Ross. Lee Ryder coming out with almost like a now or never mantra in the Chronicle. I've got to be honest, I've got to agree with Lee on that, because this is the last chance saloon. I think wherever he ends up, best of luck to him. But I would like to see him in a black and white shirt, because I think it's a major improvement, and I think he's a big game player. And I'd love to see him in a black and white shirt. I hope we can get this one done. Yeah,
I think he's the one that all the fans or the majority of fans want to see. Whether the deal can get done, we'll just have to wait and see. And I've said this before, players of his caliber, they don't come up very often, and when they do come up, because it is quite rare, then there will be other teams that are interested in him. Now we know that Tottenham have got a strong interest in James Maddison, and there's been some suggestion that he would like to live in London and move to London and continue his football career there. So Newcastle will face challenges for them, but what they do have going in their favour, obviously, is Champions League football. Is a strong English contingent within St James's Park as well, which I think will help. He'll know a lot of players from his time on international duty and so on and so forth. But also, I think what Newcastle have shown with James Maddison is that they aren't late to the party here. They aren't just going, "Oh, James Maddison's available. Well, we might be interested." This is somebody that they've pursued and tried to sign on more than one occasion. So he knows that he's a favourite of Eddie Howe, that he's wanted at Newcastle, they've got a plan for him, and there's somebody that he's somebody that they really rate. And I think that holds weight with players. They want to go somewhere where they feel valued and they know that they're going to improve their career, and he's going to have a chance of playing Champions League football. Someone like James Maddison, is he going to get another chance of playing Champions League football? If he goes to Spurs or somewhere else, will they finish in the top 4 next season? Will he get that chance? I think sometimes as a player, you've got to grab that opportunity in front of you, because your career is short, and you've got to maximise every chance that you get. So, yeah, I'm the same as you, Steve. I hope the deal gets done. I think he's got the personality and the ability to improve Newcastle on the pitch and fit in well, hopefully, around the rest of the club as well. So hopefully that deal gets sealed over the next week or two.
Ross, been a great hour, covered lots of different areas. Just give us a little bit of promo as to where people can find you.
Yeah, so on Twitter, obviously at Ross Gregory 9, if you can see some of the stuff that we're doing with the Chronicle, with the survey, we're going to have a nice little bit of content on the Chronicle over the next day or two, just on a keep or sell, where you swipe left to keep, swipe right to right. It's almost like a tune Tinder. So little bits of like that you can find, and still got a couple of pieces that I'm working on as well, which I'll get up on the Chronicle as soon as they're done.
Great stuff, Ross. See you next week, mate. Take care.
Cheers, Steve. Take care, everyone.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.